Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's EBC video. We're in Moorhead, Minnesota today, and you might notice we're inside instead of, usually we're outside. Well, it's -3 degrees. We're doing ourselves a little bit of a favor here, doing this from a hotel that we're staying at in Moorhead because we're visiting my son and his wife while they throw for the Concordia track team this weekend. All right, as we're thinking about what we're doing here in Moorhead, we're going to be thinking about Mark 1 verses 14 through 20. It's another story about the calling of the first disciples. And it's one of those really familiar stories that we've heard a lot of times in our lives, right? In fact, ironically, we were here in Moorhead last year thinking about this same story. And if you might remember, we were in front of the first ever Shields doing that conversation. Now today we're back in Moorhead because of another track meet. We're thinking about the same story again. All right. So in the story, Jesus calls Peter and Andrew and James and John, and we know that they're out fishing and they drop everything when Jesus says, "Follow me, I will make you fishers of people." It's a really interesting phrase, right? And what we know in hindsight makes a lot of sense, right? That Simon Peter and all the 4 disciples and then all of the 12 disciples are following Jesus. They've dropped everything. They're actually literally going with him. They aren't doing any of the other things they used to do. And then they're trying to bring more people to Jesus, fishers of people, right? I do wonder what they thought it meant when Jesus first said it. "Follow me, I will make you fishers of people," if they knew what that really meant. And I wonder even more what that phrase, fishers of people, means for our lifetime, right? Because as we sit here today, it's a little hard to just imagine the idea of sort of like just literally drop everything and follow Jesus. And in fact, this is the EBC Everyday Bible Conversation. So we're thinking about where Jesus fits in our everyday lives. And the idea that we would sort of just be doing nothing other than following Jesus is maybe a little difficult to conceptualize. It would be great, don't get me wrong, but I think sometimes it's a little hard to imagine what that looks like. So I want to think about it from a different direction for a moment. I want to think about it, what it means to be following Jesus when we are going about the rest of our everyday lives. Okay, so we've traveled here to Moorhead, and I made sure to do a bunch of things before we left. I got my Cobber hat on, so I made sure that was packed. There's a Packer game later today. I've got that shirt on, so I made sure that was packed, right? Well, I had a lot of work to do yesterday, so I made sure that all the things I needed, a big box of documents and a briefcase, all those things were packed. I made sure that I was doing all the things I needed to do, even when I was out doing all the other things that I was going to do in my everyday life. So what do we do with Jesus when Jesus says, "Follow me"? Are we making sure that we're also taking the time to bring along Jesus, to think about how it is that we can do things for him? When he says, "I will make you fishers of people," what does that mean as we're doing everything else? So in our jobs, how can we be fishers of people? How can we be showing the love of Jesus in what we do just as a job? How can we show the love of Jesus as we cheer for our sons and daughters and loved ones and the things that they're doing? If you think about the calling that Jesus has for his disciples, including us, what we can be thinking about now is how do we follow Jesus? Drop everything in the sense that we're making sure we're taking the time to put Jesus in all the things that we do. All right, so this week, everybody, think a little bit about how you're going to follow Jesus, even though you're going about all the rest of your everyday life at the same time. And we'll see you again next week.